This is Planet 76, your source for all things Philadelphia 76ers. We've got another great episode coming your way today, and we're cleared for takeoff. Let's go.
Welcome everyone to Planet 76, episode 88. We are back with a new Planet 76 podcast. My name is Michael, and here's Troy. As usual, your co-hosts for this lovely Sixers show that we do every week. Make sure you guys subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. All of that, all the works. Troy, we have a Sixers win streak. We are in the midst of 5 straight. 5 straight.
Yes,
And yet another win streak for this team this year. This is at least the fourth, I'd say, 5+ win streak of the year. I could be wrong there, but I think that's accurate.
Yeah, they're doing well. Hard to find anything to complain about, right? 5-game streak for the Sixers.
Yeah.
And what I was just thinking before we started recording, as you look at the teams they're playing and what they're doing, but they're winning games they're supposed to be winning, and so I think it's fitting to say the Sixers are taking care of business. Obviously part of that 5-game win streak to start it was the win in Milwaukee. But besides that, wins against Indiana, wins against the Timberwolves, wins against the Trailblazers and Wizards, and they get a couple days off before going to Cleveland on Wednesday. I mean, they're doing what they should be doing as far as beating these teams that frankly aren't as good as them. One of those games, obviously the Pacers was a lot of back and forth. We touched on that last week, but the game against the Blazers, they only led for 1.1 seconds of that game, and they won. Not every day you see that. I don't think I've ever heard that. So Joel Embiid hits the mid-range, go-ahead basket with a second left to give the Sixers their first lead, and they end up winning 120-119. Just a fantastic finish to that one, and the resolve to come back from down a lot. So that one obviously, said a lot about what the Sixers were able to do to get that win. And then tonight against the Wizards, Sunday night, to improve to 45-22 on the season. Strong record. Again, thinking back, a month ago or 2 months ago. I mean, they've been hot for a while now, but who would have thought we'd be 45-22 at this point in the season? So pretty good. So what did you see this week that caught your eye? A player, a game that's, obviously the Trailblazers game was a thrilling ending, but what else?
Yeah, the Timberwolves game, they absolutely beat the brakes off the Timberwolves. James Harden didn't play, so that's a great sign when you can win games without one of your best players. 117-94 was the final score. Maxey was huge in that game. He had 27 points. Embiid had a 39. Nothing crazy, of course. Absolutely torched Rudy Gobert in that game as well. And at this point in the season, those are the kind of games you want to win. Just kind of beating up on those middling teams, especially in the Western Conference. Timberwolves, they're just now a lot of people are higher on them than I am. They don't have Karl Anthony Towns. They're still the 7th seed in the West. So it's pretty good, but still, I mean, they're 500 right now. They're 34-34. That's average. And even with Towns, I don't know how much of a difference it would have made. But nonetheless, Sixers win. Add on to that win streak. That was the 3rd straight win there.
Yeah, that was an impressive one. There's been a guy who, both last week and this week, who's maybe finding his groove a little bit in McDaniels. He exited the game early tonight, just a hip bruise, I think. So nothing too serious there. But what's your thoughts there on just the impact that he has had and what that means and why you're hopeful or why you're doubtful? I'm assuming you're hopeful for what that means future, but why?
Very well. And I've been pretty high on McDaniels ever since the Sixers traded for him. I truly believe that he's exactly what this team needs and what this team needed especially off the bench. He can score. He really can do everything, and everything that a modern role player should be able to do. He can do all of those things at varying levels, but still he can do all of them very well. And a lot of people want him to start. I'd rather see him come off the bench. I think the Sixers need that off the bench. I don't think they need that starting because Tucker, Harris, I think they're fine in their starting roles. I think the Sixers need what McDaniels brings off the bench. They've lacked it all year, and a guy like that is really valuable off the bench come playoff time. Now, he has started a couple games in the absence of Harris and Tucker, I believe, in I forget which game it was.
Yeah.
But either way, he is a guy that has been tremendous for the Sixers team. That 20-point game he had, I believe that was against the Pacers, was a big stepping stone for people realizing how good he is and the kind of player that he can be. And I think that's only going to continue, and I think he's a fantastic player.
Well said. Well said. Someone else who, believe it or not, and I would argue that the two of us here on Planet 76 don't talk about him enough, is Joel Embiid. Believe it or not, I feel like we just don't talk about him enough.
You know, it's kind of funny you say that because I kind of agree.
Because it's like
it's Joel Embiid. I mean, I kind of agree. But
so why do you think that is? Just because it's he does what he does.
It sucks, but I just think it's because what he does, we have kind of, I don't want to say gotten used to it because that just sounds so disrespectful. But
it's close to that.
We've kind of just, I don't know how to put it. I understand it in my brain and my mind, but I can't quite put it into words. I just think we've seen not everything from him, but I think we've just seen so much from him that it kind of goes without saying at this point. We're all, as a collective unit, we all understand what Joel Embiid is. We all understand the player he's become, and it kind of just goes without saying. We understand how great Joel Embiid is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's all, here on Planet 76, we're going to give our take and opinion on things that, people might not be in full agreement with necessarily, or, some opinions that, could have another side to it. There is no other side, especially if you're a Sixers fan and you watch the team, to Joel Embiid and understanding what he's doing. And the performance that he has been having and just the player that he is and the impact he has on the team. Like, there's nothing there to debate. And so sometimes it's funny. Like, so I'm just looking at numbers. I mean, he's won, at least one player of the month this year, maybe two, for the Eastern Conference. But he looks like he's on his way to another one. We're midway through March, and Joel Embiid is averaging 37.2 points a game in the month of March. February was kind of a down month, only averaged 31 points a game.
Only 31.
January averaged 35 points a game. December averaged 35 points a game. He's on his way to another scoring title back to back. And again, the play he makes against Portland to win the game with what center does that? Makes a move like that, get the ball in his hands, ISO for him, let him hit a turnaround jumper. He's just remarkable, and he plays on both ends, as we know, and it like you said, it is hard to kind of put into words what he's doing and why we don't necessarily talk about it. It's because we kind of expect it, but it's also just because he's not the problem, if we can say it that way. A lot of times we'll come on here and we want to diagnose the problems or talk about how the Sixers can get better or do better. There's not much Joel Embiid can do better, and so he's one constant that's there. His health has been great this year, for the most part. So he's just chugging right along, and you love to see the way he's playing. I mean, the month of March is, again, he's had incredible performances in other months, but this month he's shooting 60% from the floor. He is really
really
playing well.
He's averaging He's averaging 17 points in the first half of the season.
Wow. Yeah, 17 in the first half. In the month of March, he's getting to the line almost 14 times a game. He had a 10 assist game against Milwaukee. He's just really, really, really playing at an incredible level, and you didn't think it could get better over the last couple of years, and yet, arguably he's playing better than he ever has right now.
It's just unbelievable. You think you don't think he can do anything more. You don't think he can add any more to his game, but for as great as he was scoring the ball last year, I mean, he literally won the scoring title. For as great of a scorer as he was last year, he's gotten even better this year. And a lot of it comes down to obviously shooting more, but I think he's just been able to just take the scoring to another level. It is just absolutely unfathomable. Yeah. Honestly, he's only taking 0.9 more field goals this year, and he's averaging 3 more points so far. So he's obviously making more than he was last year, but it's just unbelievable. Like, you don't, a player like Joel Embiid we've never seen a player like Joel Embiid ever, and I don't know if we're ever going to see a player like Joel Embiid again.
Well said. Well said. And then you think about, a lot of talk around the NBA has always been around NBA duos, and you think about the year James Harden is having. So we have the guy who's leading the NBA in points per game. We also have the leading assist man in the NBA. James Harden's at 10.8 per game, and it seems like, again, he had a 20 assist game the other day. He had 14, I think, tonight against Washington.
Yeah.
And he's just really, really getting it done and, being the driving force for this offense. And he's scoring when he has to score. He had a big performance against Milwaukee. He had 38 against Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
He had 17 in the fourth quarter.
17 in the fourth. He had 27 again in the loss against Dallas. He's getting his own. At 15 shot attempts a game, over the last 6 or 7 games. And you just like to see what he's doing. He's averaging over 11 assists per game in the month of March. So what do you think that does? Again, there's a lot of talk about duos. This duo's healthy, and we're hoping that they're going to be healthy over this last stretch of the regular season and go into the playoffs well rested and all of that fun stuff. But what does that do for the Sixers to know that this duo, James Harden, Joel Embiid, is playing the way they are, and what can that mean moving forward?
Well, I think it's something they can lean on, they can rely on. Embiid and Harden have been a constant this year. They've been probably the most consistent piece of this team has been Harden plus Embiid, and obviously individually they've both been consistent, but them two, when it comes to the two-man game between them and the way they have been able to create so much offense for this team, that's the Sixers have had that all year long, and I think come playoff time, that's something they're going to be able to rely on when things aren't going, you know what, let's get a Embiid Harden pick and roll. Let's get, sure, and even inverted pick and roll. I don't know if they've ever done that. Harden screening for Embiid and rolling.
And why not? Let's go.
It's possible, but like even Harden as a roll man, I mean, they both generate so much defensive attention that it can go both ways, and they can still generate some high percentage offense. And especially, the cliche of, the game slows down in the half court in the playoffs. Well, the Sixers have a half court guy. They have Maxey even to throw in that mix. They have a guy who can give if you need a jumper. I mean, Embiid's been that guy, and we know that. We've talked about that on here. But Harden is that guy too, and that makes the game so much easier in the playoffs when you really need a jumper, when you really need a guy to get a bucket. That's huge. That's something that this team can really, really rely on.
Right. That's a really good point, and I hadn't thought about that. Obviously, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, all the analytics and all that fun stuff, but the Sixers aren't a particularly fast team. They're more than capable of slowing it down and getting a bucket in the half court, and as you mentioned, that happens in the playoffs, and so that should bode well for a team that is good at that during the regular season. Getting to this talk about NBA duos and all of that. There are duos that are really, really good, certainly in the NBA. But this one, as you noted, like they play well together. Because there can be really talented NBA players
They're
on the same team
cohesive.
that, cohesiveness,
Yep.
that play good, whether or not regardless of what the other one is doing, whether they're on the floor and kind of, they go get their own, like LeBron and Dwayne Wade. Like they weren't running a whole lot of plays for each other kind of thing. Like they're both more than capable on their own, but what you see with James Harden and Joel Embiid is how much better they make each other because of that pick and roll, because of James Harden's just incredible ability to find someone and find Embiid and find matchups. And so they really, as good as they are individually, I don't think there's other duos in the NBA that match up to them when it comes to making each other better in that way. And it's a tough task to be able to stop them. And again, we think about the playoffs last year. They only had 20 regular season games to figure it out. They've had a whole regular season under their belt now, and then some. So, the hope is that it'll be really tall task for whoever they're going to see in the playoffs. Speaking of that, so I guess you could say that Sixers are chipping away a little bit. I think at the start of last week they were 4 back in the East. Now they sit at 3 back in the East behind the Bucks, who are 48-19. Boston 47-21, and Sixers 45-22. So all three of those teams within 3 games of each other. Milwaukee coming off a loss. Sixers again winning 5 straight. So still a ways to go. With how many games left? Not many. Not many games.
About 15 actually. 67 games
right.
for the Sixers.
Yeah, 15.
So
15 games left for the Sixers, 3 games to make up, if they want a shot at the 1 seed. So obviously they're going to stay hot because you're not going to count on Milwaukee to go 6-9 or something like that. Sixers are going to have to go 12-3 or something just to maybe have a chance.
they have the largest win streak in the East.
Right.
No.
So thoughts there. I know we harp on it every week, but it's really important. Again, they're chipping away. They're 1 game closer than they were last week, and that's what you have to be.
Yeah.
So. They have a game with Milwaukee coming up, early April.
Yeah, I do think that, and the Sixers have actually played less games than the Bucks and the Celtics.
Right.
Actually, the Celtics have only played. Do some quick math here. Oh, they've played 3 more games than the Sixers. No, they haven't. They played 1 more. The Bucks have played. I cannot do mental math. Anyway, forget about that. The Sixers do need to continue winning. They can't afford too many bad games anymore. This is the time of the season where these games really do matter. And that's the importance of winning those easy games in the regular season, because a time like this where you're back 3, you could be back 1.5 or 2 or whatever, and then you're back 3. And it's not the worst position in the world to be in, because it's still only 3 games with still lots of time to cover that ground. You just have to hope that the Bucks maybe lose a game here or there. Celtics had a bit of a skid a couple days ago. They've lost 3 straight. Well, they've won since then, but they lost 3 straight. And if you could beat the Celtics and Bucks again, second round too, in about a week and a half or so, or you said beginning of April?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Beginning of April, that's huge. You control your own destiny there. I said it a couple episodes ago too, but you control your own destiny there. You beat the teams that you need to jump in the standings. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, right. And the reality is, it's so the Bucks and Sixers each have 15 games left. The Celtics have 14 games left. The reality is, with the way those teams are playing, and the trajectory of how many losses they could have over 14 or 15 games, the Sixers have to win the games they play against the Bucks and Celtics. They have one apiece coming up against those teams, and so those are key. And I think if you look ahead a little bit for the Sixers in the pursuit of that 1 seed in the standings, the road trip they have coming up is going to be massive. End of March. So they have 3 straight road games coming up, all winnable: Cleveland, Charlotte, Indiana. Then they have home and home with Chicago, and then they go on the road for a few more: Golden State, Phoenix, and Denver. I think that 3-game stretch is pretty important. If they can survive that and still be around, for the home stretch coming with 7 games left or so, I think that who knows? Maybe they'll make some noise and get to the top of the standings. Because again, after that, they do play Milwaukee, Boston back-to-back, Sunday the 2nd and Tuesday the 4th. So if that's not key there, I don't know what is. So. All right. Any other thoughts on the Sixers? What's your thought on like the rotation as it is right now, and Paul Reed getting the minutes that he's been getting? Do you think Glenn's figuring it out? Hopefully.
Listen, I hope so, because what he's been doing with the rotations past few weeks has been good. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he's got somebody else talking in his ear saying, hey, do this, do that, or if he's coming to these decisions himself. I'm hoping that he is, because it's been very good, very okay with that, especially with Paul Reed, especially Jalen McDaniels. So let's hope it stays that way. Dwayne Dedmon did play tonight, actually, and weirdly enough, he looked okay. He actually didn't look that bad. I'm not sure if you saw, it was a probably 2 or 3 minute stretch.
Yeah, I saw that he got a few minutes, right?
He had this one really nice hook shot from about probably, I don't mean how many feet it was, 5 or 6 feet away, like a kind of a Kareem skyhook, a mini skyhook. Yeah. It was beautiful, great move. And then he had another nice pass to Korkmaz.
Wily old vet.
Yeah, like a wraparound pass to Korkmaz. I was very thrilled by that.
Okay.
But still, I don't think that's actually the player he is.
Right.
But
a little
so
encouraging.
I'm just kind of
if he can get in, if he can get in and have a couple minutes every game and do that for a couple minute spurt, then that's good.
If you get a chance, go watch that. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I got to. Yeah, I think the hope, if he sees any floor at all in the playoffs, is that it's very situational, very like, okay, we need a vet right now to go do something specific for a couple minute spurt. I'd be okay with that. I do have a question though about one guy who kind of hit or miss in the rotation. I think his minutes vary more than most on the Sixers team, and we'll finish with this. But Shake Milton. So he's had a couple games lately where he's played well. Had 15 against Indiana, had 30 minutes. He played 22 minutes against Minnesota. Now again, there's been some guys out and missing, in the rotation with guards and things like that. But if this team's healthy, which we hope that we're going to be, we plan on being healthy heading to the playoffs. Where is his role in roughly how many minutes? Because again, there's minutes where he gets 2 minutes. There's games where he gets 25. Is there a magic number for Shake in the playoffs, or is he very situational?
I love Shake Milton. I've talked about it in length on this show.
Yes, you have.
I don't know. I don't know the answer, because he's been very streaky this year. He's had a lot of opportunity, but he's been streaky, and it's kind of concerning to me, because he's a guy that you should be able to rely on. Maybe not rely on, but he's a guy that you should be able to throw in the rotation and have him be productive. But I just don't know. He hasn't been the player that I've seen him be and that we've seen him be. So that's kind of concerning to me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that might again just be due to the inconsistent minutes he gets, and again, we see him play 30 minutes against Indiana, the most he had played in quite some time, I'm sure, and he had 15 on a decent shooting percentage. But it's hard because again, playoff time, you especially, you start to really crack down your rotation. I mean, they might play 9 guys.
Yeah.
And I think Shake's the 10th, right? So he's probably the 10th. If there's another guard, he's definitely the 10th. But if they're going to play 9, which I don't think is very far-fetched, there might be some garbage time at the end of some games in the playoffs because there can be blowouts where you get a 10th, 11th, 12th guy in. But a lot of times, right, you go 9. meaning that the 4 off the bench, if Maxey starts, is going to be, Melton, McDaniels, Niang, and hopefully Paul Reed, which I'm not mad about. But I mean, Shake's a bucket sometimes. But again, to your point, his inconsistency, how much can you rely on that in the playoffs? And so, pun very much intended here, but if need be, I would like for him to get a fair shake in the playoffs if he's given the opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Again, I think if there's a need, I think if Melton's struggling or if Maxey's not very efficient, you give those minutes to Shake.
Yeah.
He's proven. I mean, he tried to keep us in a playoff game last year all single-handedly. So I think it does largely his role. Long story, long rant short. His role very much depends on the guys ahead of him to see if he can snag some minutes there. So that's my take there on Shake Milton.
Definitely, I agree.
All right. Alrighty, that's Planet 76. Again, we're recording Sunday, March 12th, episode 88. Sixers get a couple days off before heading to Cleveland on Wednesday to face the Cavaliers, who are 5 or so back of them in the standings in the Eastern Conference. Should be a good one. And then, again, some more road action ahead for the Sixers. So, again, Cleveland, Charlotte, and Indiana Pacers, and then followed by a home with Chicago. So Cleveland, Charlotte, Indiana, and Chicago twice, and we'll be sure to come back and break all that action down on Planet 76. We'll see you next time. If you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.